Hello there.
This is HMS Duke of York, the most obtainable of the Tier 7 Royal Navy premium battleships. Available in both the store for £28.50 and in the armoury for 101,000 coal. She is historically famous for chasing and destroying the German battleship Scharnhorst at the Battle of the North Cape, the last surface engagement of battleships in European waters. Duke of York is a lightly modified variant of her same tier counterpart HMS King George V, and was launched in 1940 as the third ship of her class. Though regrettably scrapped in 1957, she lives on in World of Warships. I have built my Duke of York to be resilient against aircraft, land accurate shells and turn reasonably quickly, with the module's auxiliary armaments, damage control, aiming systems and steering gears. My average 12-point commander wields the skills Preventative Maintenance, Grease the Gears, AA Gunner, Basics of Survivability, and Fire Prevention Expert. Duke of York has strong turrets that turn slowly and a capable set of anti-aircraft defences, but her large superstructure and thin upper deck armour will suffer from fires and HE spam. Compared to her sister ship, there are three notable differences. She has access to the hydroacoustic search consumable instead of spotting aircraft. Her guns take 4 seconds longer to reload, and her anti-air armament is the best in tier. With the largest concentration of medium and light caliber AA amongst tier 7 battleships, she is guaranteed to make even tier 8 carriers pay for straying into her airspace. However, with these guns only capable of providing protection at short range, the carrier will probably manage to get off a drop before paying the consequences. The hydroacoustic search runs for 100 seconds and recharges in 120, with 2 charges as standard. It will detect any ship within 4 kilometers and any torpedo within 3, making Duke of York the most effective RN battleship for hunting destroyers. Torpedoes are still difficult to evade at close range, as her lackluster rudder shift time and slow rate of turn do much to hinder effective manoeuvring, but it is much better than nothing and at critical moments can turn the tide against an unsuspecting enemy. Her 10 14-inch guns deliver their shells at moderately average initial velocities, but retain most of this during flight, and are identical to King George V's save for the improved armour-piercing shells, which don't check for ricochet until reaching an impact angle of 60 degrees. She has a range of 18.1 kilometers, a sigma of 1.8, and moderate dispersion, which when coupled with the aiming systems modification will produce reliable gunnery. A reload speed of 29.5 seconds sounds inadequate on paper, but is comparable to other Tier 7 premiums, and is compensated for by the damage over time fire mechanic and improved armour-piercing auto-bounce angles. As a King George V class battleship, Duke of York's Armour Scheme is identical to her sisters, save for an additional 16mm deck in place of an armour catapult. With a maximum thickness of 381mm and a centre section of 356mm guarding her machine spaces, her armour belt is a robust first line of defence against opportunistic broadside shots. What aren't so great are the massive areas of 25mm plate covering her bow, stern and deck, all of which is overmatchable by a 14.1 inch or greater diameter shell. These highly vulnerable extremities are what make many Tier 7 ships painful to play when deployed even against Tier 8s, and Duke of York is no exception. Weak when bow in and under plunging fire, this ship's best chance is to show just enough broadside that the enemy is baited to target her belt, and not her true weaknesses. Taking place on the Shards map, a set of 3 island clusters divided by open water, we find ourselves bottom tier against a number of Tier 8 and 9 opponents. Breaking down the list of team members is a good start to evaluating how to play your ship in any battle, and my immediate focus is to search for what could be considered Duke of York's greatest weakness, enemies that fire large, heavy shells from range. Second on that list come the 3 destroyers, in this case only one of them at my tier. They are what I will be paying great attention to during the course of this match. Whenever I get the chance, I will shoot at an enemy destroyer, as any damage done there lowers their chances of playing aggressively and forces them to seek cover. Early scrapping in cap circles can often dictate the balance of the entire game, and there is nothing a large, slow ship likes to deal with less than a fast, small opponent that they often can't see. I'm positioning myself to cover the space between caps B and C, with emphasis on C as it is where half of the enemy team is already concentrated. As getting into a crossfire at early stages can often result in being focused by every enemy in range, I'm waiting for the right moment to approach the cap circle whilst taking a shot at everything I can. Leaving the enemy to do their own thing whilst you concentrate on your own position is a strategy that will result in surprise and failure 9 times out of 10. Here, our team takes its first casualty, the Azuma I've already tried to warn. Though they have managed to score first blood, the response is a crossfire of torpedoes at point-blank range from Hippa, Minsk, and the currently undetected Chung Mu. Doubtless the friendly Azuma is thinking at this moment about how they will play better next time, but my more pressing concern is that we have lost one of our strongest cruisers. Shots out at the encroaching Alsace result in 2 penetrations and a fire set, which the enemy player immediately wastes his damage control upon. I'm already reloaded, and, despite the appearance of island cover, fire a full 10-gun salute which results in a further 6 penetrations and permanent fire. Comfortably befuddled by the knowledge his opponent is 2 tiers beneath him, the Alsace has underestimated me and will now burn for it. Having anticipated that he will return fire, I turn in to shake off his aim and sustain minor damage. With the Alsace blocked by an island from returning any more shots, I observe my surroundings and decide that there are enough friendly ships in the vicinity to move up. A similar thing is occurring at A, and it's important to note that as the enemy focused on B, all 4 of our destroyers have done a fantastic job in snatching both east and west capture points. At this stage, the enemy will have to take the fight to us. Once again moving out of cover, the Alsace is probably attempting to join his colleagues lurking around the islands to my right, who are well within range but wary of pressing upwards. My guess is that they are attempting to work around the edge of the map and flank us, but the presence of 2 destroyers, a cruiser and 2 battleships are forcing them to play cautiously. I load armor-piercing shells and prepare to engage the Zara, the closest ship to my position. The Zara knows what it's doing, and wastes no time in turning towards me, but I fire my turrets individually to ensure maximum damage. Now trapped in front of a loaded battleship, the Zara's time has run out, and to compound the effect, it cannot complete the turn quickly enough to avoid running aground. With my rear turret now almost completely loaded, I turn out to avoid fire from the 2 other enemies, and finish the Italian cruiser with a parting shot as I go.
Enemy cruiser sunk.
As the enemy Duke of York has begun to turn away, I target the Gneisenau's flat broadside and land a solid 4 penetrations for 13,000 damage, before switching to high explosive with the intention of starting a few fires. I ask my team to concentrate fire on the German battleship, and maintain distance between us to ensure none of its torpedoes will catch up to me. To land my shells I have to turn fully around, taking some damage in return, but my opponent is the one who has suffered.
All stations requesting fire support.
Perhaps emboldened by my retreat, the Gneisenau decides it is in his best interests to stay in open water and completes his own full turn, possibly wanting to rejoin his teammate. It's an opportunity too good to miss, and I use my HE to set a fire, which is promptly extinguished, allowing the Fletcher to do exactly the same thing. Now in a dangerous situation and taking fire from multiple ships, the Gneisenau starts to run back to cover, taking a couple of pot shots at me as he does so. The torpedoes that were launched at both myself and the Fletcher are easily spotted and do no harm, but the combined broadsides of both enemy battleships do a little more. It is at this point that the island-lurking Alsace returns at just the right moment to see, and take, a broadside shot at the friendly Iowa, wiping away almost half his health. But the Alsace itself is not in the best position, and has chosen the wrong time to fight in open water. Their confidence is probably boosted by the fact the stealthy Chungmu has begun to attempt taking the cap, and the Iowa's health is already low. But will that be enough? Iowa spots Chungmu's approaching deep water torpedoes, followed by the destroyer itself. But the only target I can shoot is the Alsace, which needs to die for our team to keep the advantage here. Perhaps at last recognising that the My High explosive is as deadly as Iowa's armour piercing, the French battleship uses its rear turret to shoot at me and succeeds in landing 2 shells, but cannot unmask the other 2 turrets for fear of exploding broadside. As the valiant Iowa finally goes down to Chungmu, the Fletcher takes advantage of the nice now laser-like focus on the cap circle by gunning it down, but the Alsace has begun to heal, and both Chungmu and Duke of York are still hiding. At this stage, with heals to spare, I take 15k from Alsace in order to set another fire, and engage my hydroacoustic search before turning in towards the cap, with the intention of flushing out the destroyer.
Concentrate fire on that enemy warship.
A final salvo towards Alsace succeeds in finishing it off. At the same time, the Chungmu is detected by the Fletcher, allowing me to unmask my rear turret and take a snapshot. The Fletcher finally takes it out with more well-placed shells, whilst its torpedoes are detected by my hydro with comfortable time to spare. The enemy only has 3 ships left, the closest one being the second Duke of York. With no need to push into the cap circle, I turn out fully and bring my guns to the starboard side in preparation for my clone to come around the island. Fletcher is already launching preemptive torpedoes in the right direction, and it is here when I decide to switch to armour-piercing rounds. I take the gamble that the enemy player will default to HE, and expect me to fire it as well, and so I might be able to bait him into showing broadside. He appears with 2/3 of his health, sailing at full speed, probably intending to do as much damage as possible before the end of the game.
Victory is in sight.
He's closer than I anticipate and turning in, so only one of my shells connects. But by this stage, my repair party has reloaded and I have a spare waiting. As I predicted, he is shooting high explosive and sets 2 fires, which I start healing but hold off on damage control. Fires on my ship burn for 40 seconds and are limited to 3 places due to the fire prevention skill, and all fire damage is repairable. At this stage, it's all down to who can hold out the longest under fire, with the enemy having the advantage of more health and dealing constant damage. But I have the advantage of 2 extra teammates and AP shells that do more outright damage. In addition, there's a limit to the amount of fires he can set, and my repair party is ready should my health drop too low, but that will not be necessary. 8k of damage plus a knocked out turret leaves him with a difficult choice. Lose precious offensive capability, or lose the ability to repair any crippling fires, just as the friendly carrier begins their drop. We lose one of our DDs, but our more pressing enemy is giving me his full broadside, and this in turn allows me to take another 7k from his rapidly dwindling health pool. Having had enough of fire, and with my repair party almost ready, I decide to use my damage control before my health becomes too low, just as our carrier finishes off our team's last issue. With only the enemy Shokaku remaining, and all 3 capture circles in our hands, we take the win with 1000 points. To conclude, Duke of York offers an alternative playstyle that is more focused on AP and destroyer hunting than her tech tree sister ship. Her Type 10 camouflage provides a 50% boost to experience and reduces service cost by 10%, in addition to her built-in 15% reduced cost, which makes her economical to run even in poor performing games. However, despite her performance shown here, Duke of York has a high skill floor and performs too closely to a standard King George V to warrant immediate purchase, especially for players who might be new to the game or the battleship playstyle. Only buy this ship outright if you don't care about the price, because there are better premiums out there for the money. Duke of York does not pretend to hide what she is, which is a strong positive if you're looking for a premium variant of KGV with a strong history to her name that can be had entirely for in-game resources. She is a powerful force when top tier, and can hold her own against a multitude of opponents, not least the ones that come from the sky, but like all tier 7 ships can struggle when placed against higher tier competent players. Her ability to take multiple hits and, by virtue of her strong repair party, heal back from the dead is something that can be underestimated, and, whilst not a perfect trait for brute resilience, can lull the enemy into a false sense of security. At her best, Duke of York excels when placed at the centre of a good team, and with support can do things that will have the enemy reeling. In summary, a ship for the enthusiast. With historical roots and a challenging playstyle, this ship will not spare you from mistakes, but will teach you how to play better. Like her 1940s namesake, she is a ship of compromises that, when all is said and done, comes together to give you more than you might expect. Thank you for watching, and until next time, happy hunting on the high seas.